I was going to go all the way
up. You got all this concern before they're born and don't give a damn about them after they're born.
And that's the problem.
Because here's the thing. The General Assembly's back in person. I can go down there if I need to and testify. They can't just say, oh, we didn't see you on Zoom, like they've been doing for a lot of activists who want to speak up on things. But here's the thing. So we're still in a pandemic in their minds, so they can't come back into session, but yet they can raise our water bills. They can raise our property tax. So which one is it?
So how do you go from 151 to 171 in the thick of the end of a pandemic? It's outrageous. And
look, I think we're still in it.
Everybody who is watching us, you need to call your city council person and say, hell no, do not vote for the tax increase and the water increase.
Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
J Street.
And welcome to the 50th show. My tongue is a little tired of The Source. Believe it or not, we've been coming to you week after week for the last 50 weeks, and we are very appreciative to all of you who continue to watch us, and we are noticing that our ratings are going up now that we are seeing more viewership. Today I want to start off by doing a follow-up of what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about a city council member had charged several city council members of basically having private meetings, and that really mustered up a lot of concern within our community as well as within this show. And I'm told that now people are some of the city council members are starting to file for the FOIA Act so that we can get some minutes on this on those meetings. Have you all heard anything?
Yes, I heard that Councilwoman Darby has filed a FOIA request asking for the records of those 7 individuals to see if they had put on in writing that they were meeting behind this rule and behind doors.
Okay.
Well, it's my understanding that either Councilwoman or someone else, or in addition to, has filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office asking them to investigate whether those meetings were a violation of the Freedom of Information Act, which I thought we suggested last week that it should be done. And, you know, it's up to the Attorney General's office to make that determination. I know full well, in my view, if it doesn't violate FOIA, it certainly violates the spirit and intention, and I think it's a good possibility that it does, and council members who attended should be dealt with accordingly.
Yeah, well, that's what
and separate and apart from that, if in fact there were votes taken at those private meetings that ended up being taken on the floor, and they had the meeting traditional before the meeting, then those actions should be nullified.
Yeah, one of the things that Loretta Walsh continued to pound at her fellow colleague was that she was confusing it with a committee meeting as opposed to a 7 votes, and Loretta is saying that there was never 7 people in the room. We don't know that to be a reality, but that's what she was arguing, because then you would be violating the FOIA Act if you had more than 7 people coming together of a council that has 14. How many members on the council?
13.
13 people. So that would be the majority.
Well, even if that's true, it's hyper-technical, bureaucratic BS.
Right.
Okay. It violates the spirit and intention of the act, and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with it, and it shouldn't continue. But it's a little worse than that.
Okay.
Because not only you have these secret meetings in somebody's house, but as they have gone through this year, the public, even when they attempt, when citizens come forward and even make an attempt to ask questions and to participate in public recognition, they're belittled and demeaned talked down to. You need to talk to the staff. So it's like public recognition, number one, doesn't exist, and number two, the public is not being allowed to actively participate in the democratic process as relates to city council, and that has to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point where when people are insulted in such a way they don't want to come back, and some folks don't want to take it anymore, all this foolishness has to cease.
Right. I agree with you 100%. And that's why I wanted to continue on with this discussion, because for them to have these private meetings, but it didn't just start this year. But one name that continues to be for the time that I've been in Wilmington for about 17 years was Loretta Walsh. She's the ring leader to always pull people together, get her votes so that her agenda can get across. And in this case, it is also to help the agenda of the mayor. Because when Dennis was in, she did everything she could to fight against him. She even fought against Baker a little bit. But Baker was a smart and a masterful politician to be able to keep her under control. Now you have Trippy, who is not a skilled politician to the level that some other city council leaders have been. She's able to just run right over him, and it's just really sad what we're seeing.
I have to disagree with that. She's not running over Trippy. Trippy only has 6.
But he has 6 going in, he has 5 now.
And when you only have 5, it's like fighting with one arm behind your back. It's fundamentally unfair and outrageous that you've got African American city council members who are sitting around acting like one person has all the sense and they don't have any, and letting one person lead and then being followers. And my question is, why did you run for office in the first place?
Well, some of them just like the title. Some of them just like having the title council person. And here's the thing. They hide behind these walls. They hide behind what's going on right now and use things to their advantage to get even more power. Look, I understand we've been in a pandemic for the last 2 years, but it's time for council to come back in person fully. Committee meetings, no, they're not. They're back on virtual. Committee meetings and council meetings. Because here's the thing. The General Assembly's back in person. I can go down there if I need to and testify. They can't just say, oh, we didn't see you on Zoom, like they've been doing for a lot of activists who want to speak up on things. But here's the thing. So we're still in a pandemic in their minds, so they can't come back into session, but yet they can raise our water bills. They can raise our property tax. So which one is it? Because when they're raising our taxes and they're speaking out against this, oh, well, this pandemic has hit us hard and now we're out of it and we need to recoup the money.
Okay, but that's a lot of malarkey.
Right.
The fact of the matter is the city has in its coffers right now more money than it's ever had before. Number 2, the budget that is requested is the highest proposed budget in the history of the city at $171 million. And when Dennis was the mayor, I only think we got to 150. So but how do you go from 151 to 171 in the thick of the end of a pandemic? It's outrageous. And
look, I think we're still in it.
Everybody who is watching us, you need to call your city council person and say, hell no, do not vote for the tax increase and the water increase.
And we're back. Well, this week, we don't have a whole lot of exciting news, I guess, but I did notice that the mayor of the city decided to acknowledge the Charter School of Wilmington for its state award that they had received. And I thought that was a great opportunity for him to acknowledge them, but I was concerned that very little, if any, of the citizens of Wilmington are part of that school.
Well, the fact of the matter is, in his capacity as mayor, it certainly is something that a mayor should do when you have a city school that wins a state award. That should be recognized by the mayor of the city. But it also creates a situation where people like me fully understand that while you recognize it as a city school, the harsh fact of the matter is there are very few city children who attend that stellar school, as it's labeled by the Department of Public Instruction. I'm sorry, Department of Education now. And it's a, an outstanding school, but it's not one where city children are actively participating. And you look at that school over there being at the top of the line, and then you look over here at the east side with the city schools being the worst performing schools in the entire state of Delaware. So, I wanted to talk about that, and the mayor should recognize the good, but we also need to deal with the reality that our kids, for the most part, are not allowed to go there because of admission policies and practices. And in the meantime, the predominance of our children continues to suffer irreparable harm because of what's not going on in the schools that the predominance of them attend.
Let me ask you this question, then I'll go to you. It relates to that, because you said something that kind of struck me. Could the mayor, because none of the schools are run by the city, could the mayor put in his budget resources to augment the schools that are in the city?
Of course.
Oh, really?
You've got a Department of Parks and Recreation. You have a William Hicks Anderson Center, okay? And I'm going to say it again. When I was Parks Director, every school in the city had an after-school program that was funded by the Department of Parks and Recreation with a staff, so the kids could go in for one, recreation, and number two, for tutorial assistance and things like that after school. The arrangement was that the city would not charge the schools for water and sewer in exchange for space. Somehow or another, that agreement no longer exists, and if you look, none of the schools have those kind of activities, and there is no funding from Parks and Recreation for those activities. And the only thing that remains in place, I guess, is a relationship with Brandywine, and they're still using the swimming pool at PS during the summer.
Mr. Mayor, I think one of the reasons why I've said to you personally, and we are saying on this show, that you need to really put around you some people who know the history and also who can help without digging in your pocket, or us digging in your pocket. This Brother Street just gave a good example of what used to be. We can make a difference in the children's lives in this city, in the school system, even though we're not running the school. Stop using it as an excuse. We're not in charge of the schools. We can do some aftercare, before care, and during care.
But what does the city do for its own children?
Well, that's what I want.
Separate and apart from the swimming pools in the summer, what does it do?
So, Pastor, me and you usually don't agree, but I got to disagree with you on this. I'm not reaching into the mayor's pockets on anything. This is our bank account. And I'm going to sound like that commercial. It's our money and we want it now. We should be able to dictate where our taxpayer dollars go to, right? Okay. Because what I'm seeing our taxpayer dollars, our public dollars go to is Bacini Paulin. It's building all these market rate based housing and apartments and condos that are coming downtown.
Okay.
But why can't we put that into our schools? Why can't we put that into our kids? Why can't we fix the roads in the city? It's little things like that that I'm not seeing. But when it comes to this,
how is the roads a little thing when you've got a utility company that has made a jigsaw out of every street in the African American community, and nobody's compelling them to come back and fix it?
That's true.
Well,
that's true, but
that's what he's saying. We're not disagreeing today, because I'm there. I was trying we were giving the mayor some credit for acknowledging the school, but those of us here want education to be a landmark of what we do. So I don't understand why not neither.
I'm glad he acknowledged Wilmington Charter School for winning something. I hope he starts acknowledging Salesianum as well too. We win a lot as well. No, but on a serious note, I think this program, right? I just want to give a little background about the program. The Delaware Enviro-Thon has awarded over $62,000 in scholarship to students. It talks about how, in building environmental plans, addressing it, it gets kids talking about something that is truly important in our community. So I want to say congratulations to Charter and the 10 schools that participated in the competition this year. But when it comes to the mayor, let's continue to build upon that. If you think that is good for charter to have, let's try to get it in Hicks-Anderson. Let's get our kids talking about how they can change their communities for the better. Talk about the environmental racism that has happened here in the city of Wilmington that are affecting a lot of them.
And all up and down Route 9.
Yeah.
Throughout my district, both in and out of the city.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to, yea, though I say it again. What does the city do for its own children? What do you do?
I don't know.
Swimming pools and that's it.
Well, that's all you deserve, probably. Swim.
Because I'm sitting here
I'm gonna learn.
exasperated about the fact, and I'm going to say it again. I took the lead on bringing the education funding lawsuit. And that's going to bring about, for the entire state, approximately $100 million a year for special funding for at-risk children, low-income children, children with special needs. The city of Wilmington had the unmitigated gall to intervene in the litigation. And there's not a scintilla of a reference in the city's papers about the city's children. All they were concerned about is the amount of tax revenue that it would generate for the city of Wilmington. There's not a scintilla of a reference about the city's children and the city's intervention into the education funding lawsuit. The city said nothing about our children.
Well, and that saddens me. That saddens me.
And so as the advocate, you know, when it comes to the city of Wilmington, I'm like Patti LaBelle. I'm on my own.
I'm on my own. Once again, yeah, he be quoting those songs, boy. I tell you. And I'm a Patti LaBelle fan, so you don't calm me down by just saying her name. But let me say this to you: I agree with you brothers, that we got to do more for our children. I quoted this because I had an opportunity this week to interview on my Coffee with Curry show two outstanding candidates, one for Colonial and the other one for Red Clay. And one of the things I kept saying was the Frederick Douglass quote, and that is, it is better to strengthen the youth than to have to repair the elderly. And what happens all too often
Why
is that
you look at me when you said elderly?
I was looking at both of y'all. Because what happens all too often is we're trying to fix stuff instead of being proactive. These young people need our attention. If the mayor is to be an effective mayor, if he knows that the city crime is connected to the illiteracy that is going on in our schools, then why wouldn't you try to put your budget to reflect how do we solve this problem?
Why wouldn't you establish a working partnership with the schools and the school districts to enhance learning before and after school? Why wouldn't you put some of your revenue specifically into the enhancement of educational activities for the city's children? And to not to do that, I think it's a dereliction of our duty as a government.
That's right. Well, that was one of the reasons why I did not show up for the renaming of the street. People asked me, they said, Pastor Curry, why weren't you there for the renaming of the street? And I said, because I was Newt's pastor, and I know when he needed some help in certain areas, people who all singing his praises, that's why I made my comments at the funeral, were not there to help him. As a matter of fact, they overlooked him. So now all of a sudden we want to superficially name a street after him. Thank you for the street, or for the superficial naming of the street. But the reality of it is, people show up. That's what politicians done. The Greek language of politics is poly means many, ticks are blood suckers. So when you took politics, it's many blood suckers.
You're kind of hard on all of us, ain't you?
I don't care. That's why most people have changed their language from being a politician to becoming public servants. Because there is a fundamental difference between the two.
I'll take the public servant.
Absolutely.
I'm going to keep running for office.
Yeah, and you should. Because they can see clearly that you are not sucking from the community to give to your friends. Sucking from the community to destroy it. But what you're doing is you're trying to pump life in. That's a public servant. But a politician is those individuals who just constantly show up at the right time.
Want to be seen and heard and stand in front of the cameras, and that's why I don't do that.
Absolutely.
That's exactly why I don't do that.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, and I can agree with you on that one, because even when we started this show, you said, Pastor, I don't really want to do that. I've been doing those things. I now want to just work for the people. And now that you come off of your retirement and your old age stuff, I'm glad that you were able to stick with us.
Let me be real crystal clear. and I've been coming every week for the past several weeks. And there's a genesis to everything that I do. There was a period of time when it was questionable whether or not local cable TV and what was going to happen on Channel 28 would continue. And I was still working at Delaware Park as a teller. And of course, I always talking to my colleagues, and one of the brothers said, hey man, if we don't have Channel 28, where do we get our information from?
Absolutely.
I don't deal with the newspaper and that radio station and all that. And obviously it impacted me because that happened 5-6 years ago and I'm still talking about it. And as I thought about the show and what we're trying to do, I feel like I have a duty to help bring information
Absolutely.
to the citizens of the city of Wilmington. And we don't have to sit here and agree about everything, but we're bringing the information. And when you do this work, if you do it correctly, differences of opinion can be healthy.
And we embrace that. We embrace that. I mean, we don't have to agree. Only thing we've been agreeing on here recently
is that people need the information.
Need the information is that, and that the mayor needs to come out of that clone and start serving the people. Let me try to give you some more credit.
You got a better chance of seeing Jesus.
I see Jesus every time I pray. I don't see him physically. But listen, let me try to see if we can go to another topic that maybe we can give him some acknowledgement, okay? The mayor did something else that was I thought this was very nice. He encouraged city youth to be a part of the police academy. I think that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, he established a youth police academy. And I think that he and Chief Tracy deserve credit for that. We're the first ones that raised Cain when we think something wrong. And any effort, in my opinion, to try to establish a relationship between our children and the police is worth doing, worth having, and mutually beneficial. And I'll go all the way back to December 1st, 1974. One of the first things Hicks Anderson said to me is, boy, if you're gonna work with children in this town, you got to work with the police. And, 47 years later, I think that's exactly true. I did what I was told. And I think it's important for our police officers, I think it's important for our children to try to establish a positive relationship. So it's mutually beneficial, and I'll give the mayor and chief credit, because even if it's just the good kids,
right?
It's kids that are going to have a positive rapport with police officers, and they'll have that for the rest of their lives.
Right. Well, we're going to be following that, and I hope that it does turn out to be something that will be beneficial to the city, and also encourage African American or youth to want to be a part of the process to become police officers.
But let's not just do it to do it, right?
Okay.
So if these kids are showing interest in the police department, we had this same issue with the Fire Explorer program, that you had city kids who were in this program who showed interest, but then the city wouldn't hire them.
Huh?
They would go outside the city. And the same thing, I don't want to see the same thing happen here. Now, this is a great program. In 2021, 26 people graduated from the program. This is good. Keep them on that track so that they can become the officers that protect their community where they grew up and lived at. That's what we want to see more of. But we also have to make sure that we're intentional about hiring these individuals when it comes time to.
Okay.
That's all
I think that's important.
I agree with you, Kobe. I think that's a good point. And it should be actively pursued, and I think we all have a responsibility to not just pursue it, but insist on it. That there be given some priority for those children who actively participate successfully in those programs, that there be given some priority to them in the hiring process.
Yeah.
And that's what other cities have done. And that's why their programs have been so successful in being sustained.
Well, we will see whether or not it was just something to do, or if it was really some thought put into it that will outlast the administration that is currently here. We will see that. I want to just jump downstate a little bit. It was weird as I was reading the articles this week. Smyrna's superintendent placed on leave. I mean, they trying to act like, I read the article, it was dealing with, should we keep the paint, the mural up, should we not? What's going on with that?
So we talked about the protest that happened not too long ago, where a mural of Angela Davis was covered up, and then it was uncovered after the kids protested and did a peaceful sit-in. And I think that upset a lot of people. Now, this comes as him being flip-floppy. This comes off as him being flip-floppy to some of the board members. So they have placed him on leave indefinitely and made the assistant superintendent the acting superintendent in this time. Now, here's the interesting thing. On Tuesday, May 10th, is a school board election, and 2 of those school board members are up. This seems as though this superintendent has been very open to inclusion and to trying to diversify the thought of things to make sure that African American students feel comfortable there. And the school board decided to do this. So if you think the school board was wrong in their decision, make sure you get out and vote them out, and don't let the other ones who want even more extreme things to happen, don't let them get on to the school board.
But I want to go a little bit deeper, Street, and Kobe. I want to go a little deeper because later on we're going to talk about the leak that occurred with the Supreme Court. But this whole notion of whether or not we should have an Angela Davis mural up.
But it wasn't even a mural. It was one of her well-known quotes in terms of it wasn't a mural of her. It was a depiction, as I understood it. The words that she used were placed in the mural, and then that was covered up, and then it was uncovered. And it appears to me on the surface as if the school board didn't like the fact that it was taken down and then put back. And so it boils down to, at the end of the day, whose side was he on? I mean, whose side were they on? And here's a superintendent that probably overextended himself in an effort to maintain diversity and to keep his promise to the students that was made by the officials at the high school, that they could do that. It was done under their supervision. So people who don't think school board elections are important, they're very, very important.
Yeah.
And one of the things that all these school officials need to understand is that the majority of public schools in this state are no longer predominantly majority schools. They're predominantly minority schools across the board because of the proliferation we had of private schools and charter schools. And where folks choose to go, the predominance of public schools are majority minority schools. And if anybody thinks any administrator worth his or her salt can get away with ignoring the minority community, it's a sad career mistake for them, in my judgment.
But you know what? I was shocked. I share with you all that I interviewed 2 candidates that I am supporting. I put them on the Coffee with Curry show.
Are you going to say who they are?
I am. Yes, I am. Because Keenan Dorsey worked for me. I was the chairman of the board at Moyer, and he worked for me and turned the school around. And Governor Jack Markell and his crew said, had you been there 3 years earlier, we would have kept the school open, and it was turning. He is one who understands education. So yes, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that, Keenan Dorsey, I'm going to support 100%. And
if you live in the city of Wilmington, in the Riverside area of the city, you voted Kingswood. If you live outside the city, south of South Bridge, you can vote at any colonial school.
Yes.
And you need to vote on Tuesday, May the 10th. The polls are open all day up until 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, well, and we got that.
7 in the
that's
morning,
going to be up on the
8 o'clock
screen.
at night. Go vote.
Okay, well, we're going to get back to that because we're going to do that. I was asking a question, and the other person was Vic Leonard from Ray Clay.
Yes.
I interviewed him, but this is what got me. In interviewing both of them, that 90% of school board members are not educators.
Yeah.
How could that be? How could you tell me the trajectory of how a school should be run, where it should be, and the thoughts and how to deal with the issues in a school, and you have not been there? If I need brain surgery, do I go to a mechanic?
No.
Well, they may do it, but I would definitely not. So question, why are we allowing these school board elections to be looked upon so loosely? This is life and death. You talked about the minorities' children are the ones who are going to these schools now. Decisions are being made by people who don't have a clue on what you should be asking. What is your education background?
Well, even if they do have education credentials, what do they really care about the children that we have to concern ourselves with the most? And regrettably, children of color, at-risk children, special needs children, have never been a priority for the predominance of the school board members in this county, which why it is my position, continues to be my position, that these 4 districts need to be abolished, and we need to go back to the one system, one school district in northern Newcastle County that we had at the beginning of the desegregation order in 1978. And the state intervened, came along, reorganized the districts, made the 4 districts, and it was all about, they didn't want one former superintendent to have control of all the revenue that was generated because the city of Wilmington had a lock on entitlement money, and at the time, city of Wilmington teachers were making approximately $13,000 a year, and suburban teachers were making approximately $5,000 a year. And so in order to keep that superintendent, who was originally from having a lock on all that money, they divided it in 4. And the reason it stays in 4 is for the exact same reasons. It's about who's going to be in, it's about that revenue and the person in charge being in a position to hire his or her friends, relatives, whatever, and have control versus what's best for children. And what 4 districts is not what's best for children, and it's certainly not what's best for children in the city of Wilmington.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Look, these school board elections are so important right now. Yeah. One, to create more diversity of thought, to bring people who have experience in the schools, who understand where the students are, who understand where the educators are, to make sure they're doing the right thing for our students, crafting the right policies. Our Department of Elections here in Delaware does not craft policy. Yeah. It does not craft the curriculum. It's each individual school board that does that. So if you want to make sure your kids are learning at the highest level possible, you need to get involved with these school board elections. And each year, we see very low turnout. Now, 2021 was the outlier. So 2022, we're going to see if this trend is going to keep going or if people aren't caring anymore.
Because everybody was locked in their house and voted from home, and I think the turnout is going to be dismal, which is why I'm encouraging people sitting here. This is Sunday, day after tomorrow, go vote.
Yeah.
Don't turn your back on our children.
Yeah, because that's what you're doing when you don't vote. Right. You got to, and Jay, one more time, just share, if you're voting, if you are in the Brandywine section or wherever for the Colonial.
For Colonial, live in the Riverside area that's north of 12th Street and east of Governor Prince Boulevard, you go vote at Kingswood. Outside the city, below South Bridge, everything going down Route 9 on both sides, you can vote in any school in Colonial at any time. You can vote at Eisenberg, you can vote at McCullough, or you can go all the way down and vote. If you say you work in a motor vehicle, you can go down and you can vote at Wilbur School.
That's where I voted.
And the schools the polls will be open from 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. Go vote.
Yes. And what about for the Red Clay?
So for Red Clay, you have Cab Calloway you can vote at. You have, in the city of Wilmington, you have Highlands Elementary. Over that way, you have
Lewis,
and you have Warner in the city.
And Shortledge.
Is Shortledge on the list? I thought they took it off last year.
They may be because they may have combined the two. I apologize.
Yeah, so
now,
go to Warner.
Let's make sure we understand the process. So when I show up, because I'm guilty of my child is in private, and I'm not going to, I don't have no bones about it. I put her in private because I want the Christian background, all of the stuff, and don't send me no letters. She's in a private school. Her daddy can afford it. Moving on.
Loan me $10.
As soon as the show's over, I give you 20. Moving on from that, I'm going to, because I pay taxes, I'm going to make sure and care about these children. I want to know, when I go to Wilbur, what do I need to take with me?
Just your ID.
What is my ID? My driver's license or state license?
Yep.
And they'll be able to verify
that has your verification that you live in the school district. So
Okay.
it has to have your address on it.
Okay. Is that anything else on that?
No, sir.
So I think you need to have your driver's license to be able to go, or your state license, and you go to whatever school that we just named and vote. I'm Colonial, so quite natural, I need to go to Wilbur, and I'm going to vote. I can't tell you who to vote for. I know who I'm endorsing, because when I found out that they're winning elections by a few hundred votes, because there's only a few hundred
people voting.
Right. Especially in Colonial.
They get there.
And we have 10,000 kids in the city of Wilmington alone.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And for those of you who are in communities where you're tired of seeing the schools failing and the kids are fighting and things like that, you need to put people on boards who can help the educational process, that they may be able to bring programs to the schools that will help. So again, if you're in Colonial, you need to make sure you're voting. Street share to different areas where you vote. If you're in Red Clay, you need to be voting. Make sure your voice is making a difference for our children. Our children need us.
And the school board elections determine who's going to be the superintendent.
Yes.
And the superintendent ultimately runs the district.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this,
Red Clay. We've had some darn good ones, and we've had some awful ones.
Yeah. And I just want to say, Colonial's school board race last year was decided by 31 votes.
31 votes.
And the person who got the most votes with 189 votes.
That's horrible.
Colonial had one of the lowest turnouts last year. Let's change that for this year.
Yeah, and the reason why they had, well, I don't want to go into the reason, but I'll just say we need to change it. And there's going to be 2 more votes added to the numbers when we're dealing with our Colonial and Red Clay. And we got a very good superintendent at Red Clay.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Green is, but he can't. I saw when he was here, when I was interviewing him, I sensed that he can't say so much, but those boards dictate.
Well, I could talk about Red Clay. So last year I ran Keisha Neesmith's campaign. She's the freshman board member right now. She's doing amazing things. You have people like Dr. Adriana Bohm, who's also on the Red Clay School Board, who's doing amazing things. All I want to say is those two and a third person, they're in the minority.
Yeah.
Of what truly wants to happen and what needs to happen for that school district. So that's why it's so important to make sure you get out. And like you said, Vic Leonard is the candidate.
Yes. So how many board members are there?
7.
7. So that'll make them have 3. We need 1 more.
No, that'll make them have 4.
Oh.
They'll have the majority.
Give me the 3.
The third person is Jose Matthews.
Okay. And
so it's Jose Matthews, Adriana Bohm, Keisha Neesmith.
Dr. Adriana.
Dr. Adriana.
Okay.
I think that's important.
And if you talk about Vic, for those of you who say, well, they just endorsing somebody they want. Look, Vic spent 20-something years as a teacher in the Red Clay School District.
Right. I'll give you the background. He's been an educator for 20 years. He's been a coach for most of those years as well, too. He's endorsed by the teachers union there.
He was, that's right.
He has the backing of a lot of organizations who care about our students and want to see, someone who's willing to roll up their sleeves and fight for students and fight for educators. He's a good guy, and I think he would make a good school board member.
When I was interviewing him, I was so impressed. He said to me, listen, Pastor Curry, I don't have all the flair, and I don't have all the. He said, I'm just who I am. I love children. I've done it. His wife is a school teacher. His son and his daughter are all a part of the educational process, and they understand. And he said, all I want to do is serve and give back to a community that have given me so much.
And
I think that's important.
I think the school board members don't get paid, and I think that's awful. So anybody that is running is there for the sole purpose of serving, And obviously, the person you're talking about now is committed because it's nothing in them but for success for children.
Yeah.
That's why they do it.
Well, some people. Some people do it so they can keep a hold over the communities and have some political power. But for those who we've named, they want to serve those children. And in the Red Clay, in the Colonial with Keenan Dorsey, I happen to know him. I worked with him. He came in and turned Moyer around. He knows the dynamics. You can't just say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. If Keenan gets on that board, all the yak going to be yak out because he understands the process. He also understands the politics. He's a good candidate, and I embrace him strongly. So I encourage all of you to please remember on May 10th. Is that the right date? Because sometimes I quote
day
wrong.
After tomorrow.
The day after tomorrow, May 10th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Don't wait until the end. Get to the schools in those districts. If you live in Colonial, if you live in Red Clay, and vote.
And don't you just go. Take 2 or 3 people with you. Call your friends, call your family. Make sure they go vote. All across the state, it's going to be school board elections.
Don't we have an election in Brandywine?
No, only one person filed.
And do we have an election in Christina?
No, only one person filed.
I just want to make sure everybody knows why we're not talking about the other 2.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you very much. So the whole notion of making sure that we keep the integrity of the show there as well. So please make sure that you go out and you vote. Next week, we're going to share with you the results. I hope and trust that our conversation today will help you in your decisions. Before we go on to the commercial, I just want to say something about the statue of James Sills and what occurred with that. So I know as a proud citizen of the city of Wilmington, that must have done your heart well.
It did my heart well, and I worked for him, and Lord knows, the first job I got as executive director, he was the administrative advisor to the program, so he's been a huge part of my career and training me. And I'm not an emotional person, but the only reason I didn't stand there and cry because I didn't want nobody to see me crying, because of the historical nature of it. And to me, when you look at who let us in and out of the DSEG era, Jim Sills, and in the process became the first African-American mayor in the city of Wilmington, but his leadership in the DSEG process was extraordinary. And we've got the bridge and the statue up for him, that 8-foot-high statue. Obviously, Mr. Redden was the primary litigator, and we've named the city-county building after him. As Mr. Redden stopped, Judge Williams picked up and was one of the primary litigators, and we have the courthouse named after him. Hicks Anderson was an outstanding advocate and the person who really worked the streets in the process and trained me, but he took the leadership in seeing to it that there weren't fights, and that any time something began to happen, we were right there to break that up. So we had the Hicks Anderson Center named after him, and the former Wilmington superintendent, and ultimately the first superintendent of the Red Clay School District, Joe Johnson. Highland School is going to be named after him on May the 23rd. So to me, it's fitting that the men who let us in and let us out are being appropriately recognized, and I'm so glad that the 90-year-old mayor was able to be there and get his flowers and smell them while he's still here.
Yeah, and something you said, I'll come right to you, Kobe. Something you said that kind of rang, and I begin to think, who we vote for matters. Sam Guy was in city council when they were finishing up that, preparing to rename the building,
Justice Center.
the Justice Center, and it was he who led the charge against the state to say, no, we can't name this building Bo Biden. It has to be Lenny Williams, because we had put it in the charter before time, and he stood up and he fought with some other advocates to make it clear you cannot name that building after Bo Biden. And I thought that was so honorable. But he was in city council at the right time, and he did not shut up. He continued to move forward. They had to do what they needed to do. So that one, I give all credit to knowing that we had the right people in position to be able for the city of Wilmington to follow its agreement. The second thing is when you start talking about the statute.
But we've got to give Governor Markell credit because he had the guts.
That's it.
Okay. He had the guts to go on and do what he thought was right. And certainly Sam gives you credit because he's, the legislation that made it difficult for them to name it for somebody else, he put out there.
Yes.
But, we were able to convince Governor Markell to do the right thing as relate in, so certainly Sam gets credit, but you also had to have a governor in place who had the courage to stand up.
I'm going to say this. Yes, Markell did have the courage, but if they would have went another route, it would have been all hell broke loose in the city because that was in the charter. But I want to go a little further. You had an opportunity to see a 90-year-old man who I just had on the Coffee with Curry show receive his flowers while he lived. I want to show the city council members who are African American and Latino that real leadership and real representation is not about you and some person's agenda or being somebody's crony. It's about representing your community. Darius Brown led the way for this statue to happen.
And let's tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
The statue was $300,000. Okay, and the base is probably $200,000. Okay. And so those who criticize us and had a problem with us when we supported Darius after he was found not guilty.
Thank you.
Okay, where were y'all at?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and the fact that historically nobody but has been able to deliver that kind of revenue for a statue of a black man
in Delaware.
Or anywhere else.
Well, that's true, but I want to keep saying in Delaware.
In Delaware.
So I wanted to throw that out there. For all of these city council people who getting these fish sandwiches and chicken sandwiches and macaroni and cheese on the side, instead of being taught how to fish and to make your own.
But
this is leadership.
How pathetic is that? That you've got the youngest among us
delivering
the most.
Well, I ain't going to get into more fights today. But I want to make sure, and he said it right. I want
to get into it. $40 million for a library, $10 million for a community center, an African-American female judge in all 3 counties and the Delaware Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And who has a record like that?
Right. And we did not open
289,000 expungements, 289 people. 289,000 people eligible for expungement.
Yeah, and he's not even a senior senator.
And if I'm him, I'd be sitting there saying, no brag, just fact.
Just facts. And people can criticize me as a pastor, you as a community leader, So why are y'all supporting this person? I supported him because of, number one, I recognize what he has done for our community. But once I said I was going to leave it alone, I even told him privately, I was not going to go, if you did something to somebody, harm someone, we're going to deal with that issue first. Once we allow the unfair judicial system to do what it needed to do, then the verdict came out. And that's why I gave credit to Sokola, because I said, listen, he didn't have to have the guts to change and go back and follow the system.
He had the guts to take him out in the first place. I don't want to hear it.
I know you said it to me last week, but I'm going back to it. I give him credit. But when I saw that and that statue, almost a $5 million statue.
500,000.
I'm sorry, let's get that right. 500,000. That is just remarkable. That's leadership. That's representing your community. And that's what we're looking for.
And recognizing the history.
Yeah.
The history of Jim Sills that he made in 1992, winning that election. And every other every other major city in the country has recognized the first African-American mayor, and I'm just sorry. I'm glad Jim was there. He spoke very eloquently. He was very appreciative, but I'm so glad that he got to see it.
Yeah, let me just say this, and then we're going to go to a break and get ready for the Kobe Corner. Let me say this to you. The first black president of the United States was Barack Obama. And
Barack Hussein Obama.
Okay, and he created the KKK, the racist folks, the worst became apparent because we made it. It's like, who let the dogs out? Who allowed black folks to be able to be in leadership? Then I looked at when even Sills became mayor. The first. I wasn't here. But this is what led to the other folks putting a Jim Baker in there. Now I ain't going to go too far because I don't want y'all to get mad at me. But look at the people. Look at the people who still running the government, whether they be chiefs of staffs or whatever else, to make sure Jim Sells got put out. He was representing his community. I pay attention to the trajectory. I don't just look at what's happening. Everything is providential.
But Mayor Purzycki pointed out the fact that Jim Sills was a part of working with him to establish everything that has transpired on the riverfront, okay? And so you had one mayor saying to the other, thank you for helping the city in terms of economic development when everybody else threw hot water on it.
Yeah, well, that's how it rolls. That's how it rolls. Because, but look at how it turned out. One-term mayor.
Two.
No. What's his name?
I think Baker ran.
Baker ran and beat him.
No. Jim Sills did 2 terms.
He did?
He was elected in 92 and he was elected again in 96. Okay. Baker said he wasn't going to let him have a 3rd term. And
is that what it was?
That's when he went after.
Oh, you just helped me out. Now somebody's saying, nah, he got you, Pastor. No, I need to make sure. That's why we need your wisdom.
Here.
We need your wisdom.
You
this
weren't
was
here.
before my time.
You didn't work for him.
Okay. Well then I thought he only served four years.
No, he
He
served 8 years with distinction.
Okay, very good. Very good. So I'm grateful that they were able to give him his flowers where he lived, and I hope and trust that we will continue to do that. But I'm asking the city council.
One of them said, Jim, you're going to make 100, and I think he will.
Well, he's a Morehouse man. You know, that's how they work. You know, he may be a Kappa, but he's a Morehouse man. And that's the only thing that's going against him is he's a Kappa. You know, other than that, he'll be all right.
I said that once. I didn't say it this time. Made a whole lot of people mad. I didn't say it. He said it.
Good.
But I was down there
it.
singing about a mega party.
Amen. We'll be right back. And we're back. Let's just run over to the Kobe Corner at this point. Brother Kobe, what you got for us this week?
Yeah, so first off, I want to say that the governor has formally extended the public health emergency for another 30 days. This will mean that the governor is allowing the state of Delaware medical providers to continue COVID-19 testing and vaccine programs, and it enables the flexibility of staffing in hospitals and long care term facilities, and maintains the eligibility for low-income Delawareans to continue to receive enhanced federal assistance, especially food benefits as well too. So I'm glad to see him take that step.
Yes.
As we're still trying to fight back against this, but that's what I think everyone has heard about. That there was a leak of Justice Attilo. His brief on overturning Roe versus Wade, and that they took a preliminary vote, and it was 6-3. And what's going on right now, and there's still some room, there may be another dissent to make it 5-4. But what is going on right now, you see mass protests spark up. But last night, the other night... You
started one of them.
Yes, I did help organize one of them. But last night, the other night, there was a host who suggested that the leak was actually Ketanji Jackson Brown, which completely undermines her integrity. Well, first off, I don't think it was. I think it was a law clerk. And to be honest, I think it was a conservative law clerk to try to lock in all the judges to make sure none of them flip on this decision. Because what happens when a decision is actually made, they take a preliminary vote, you have the opinion comes out, and then you have the dissenting opinions. And in those dissenting opinions, they take about 2-3 months to get it done. Well, now this is going to undermine the court if any of them flip, because now they're going to be able to say, oh, they only flipped because it was public protests. Well, here's the thing. I think, like I'm going to keep saying it, I think it was a conservative law clerk who leaked it. But everyone has called for an FBI investigation into this. But I know y'all two probably have some comments on this.
G, you got any comments?
Well, no, because my comments go back to the genesis of all these organizations who have been a part of this whole non-abortion idea, and the genesis of them, of the organizations, are the aftermath of the May 17, 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision, and they grew up with people who just refused to want their children to go to school with black children, and white supremacist organizations grew out of that, and then they took in the 70s and took up this issue. And you know, so I look at those who are proponents of that, going back to the genesis of the organizations that in fact were white supremacist organizations originally, and to me that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I don't believe that you tell people how to live their lives. The Bible says, if I can just be very honest, that this is a whosoever will way. People have a right to do whatever they want to do as it relates to the Lord's kingdom, but he has his own standards. Mm-hmm. So if by some chance, my issue is not so much the Roe v. Well, it is the Roe v. Wade, but my issue is more in what Street is saying. And what he is saying is the white supremacy folks, this is going to lead to a whole lot more.
Correct.
This is going to lead to a whole lot more.
Because the initial problem they had was Brown versus Board.
And that's what we are missing. But for those individuals of saying outlawing it, I don't personally believe in abortion. I don't. And I'm not trying to appease the liberals or the conservatives. I am a Christian. My Christian beliefs does not permit me to believe that, in that. However, I also do not tell people what to do with their bodies. To make something out, if that's the case, if those of you who are Christians, well, if you're saying we should outlaw abortion or whatever else, then we should also outlaw these liquor stores. We should also outlaw drugs that are legal now, like marijuana. So it's
not yet, not in Delaware.
Not yet, but it's coming. Trust me when I tell you. It's coming.
I'm going to keep running.
And the point I'm saying to you is, while I will not support abortion, I am not going to get into the discussion of what should be legal and not legal, because most of what's in this country is illegal as it relates to the kingdom of God.
And here's the thing. I believe that anyone should have a choice to do whatever they want with their body, right?
That's where I am.
And here, it's funny because, you know, for the last 2 years, we've heard some of these same men who are supporting this say that it's their body, their choice. They shouldn't have to wear a mask. Yeah. And you saw at a higher level who died from COVID. Yeah. If they choose to put their body on the line in that way, let them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, because it's a woman, you will never have a child as a man.
Yeah.
So you don't know what a woman has to go through for that.
And here's another fundamental problem. Fundamental problem. You say you do not have a right to have an abortion, but your same voice, especially the Republican Party, will not give those same children appropriate health care.
Nope.
You want them
Preschool,
to come here. I was going to go all the way up.
Education.
I was going to go all the way
up.
up.
You got all this concern before they're born and don't give a damn about them after they're born.
And that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back. you enjoyed the show today, and it has been certainly interesting. But I pray that the Lord will continue to bless you. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
Happy trails.
See ya.
Take care, y'all.